Yeah, hello there and welcome back, and let us continue with our lesson over here. And in this lesson we are going to learn about the import and export option in the JavaScript. So in the previous, once we created this particular component over here, which is of the view component over here, I guess the spelling has the error. So view component, component. So actually it should be of the view component over here, and we need to export that one. And once that is done, we are good to go. So let's go back over here, and we need to rename this one as well over here, and that should be fine. So let's go and learn about the export first of all. So once we do a export default of view component, if you don't know what is that one, you may be quite confused why we are setting as a export default and then the view component over here. And you may be already familiar with the export, or you may think, okay, I want to export this particular component and then I want to import it over here in my particular app.js file, which we have imported over here from that particular component. So that makes quite sense over here. But what is this particular default over here, and why we are using it as a default over here? The default basically means that we are exporting this particular component as a default value over here, and we cannot have a multiple default over here. So if you have another value, and here what we'll try to do is we'll try to export another option over here, export default over here, defa default over here, and const of, let's say, a name which is of equals to the something as a string over here. So if you go and take a look, now we get an error said that the module cannot have a multiple default exports, right? So which basically means we cannot have a default keyword for multiple export over here. But what I can do is I can just remove this default keyword from here, and now I can also export the name from here, which is a name export over here. So this is a default export which we are exporting a default component value from here, which is of this particular component. And here we have a named export, which we are just exporting a name over here. So, or we can just say this is of something like a full name over here, and this is just a named export. So here in the app, what we have to do is we can import that particular export from that particular component, from the module. We have created a view component which is actually a module in the JavaScript. So here we can import that one over here, and I can just go and import the full name over here, right? So that is over here. So I need to import a full name from this particular component over here. And now you can see that I can have a view component, or I'll just say this is of the just a view, and I can just go and use this one as of the view over here, and it should work perfectly fine. So I can give a different name than what I have exported it from here. So I can use a different name since this is a default value for the view component, right? So I can use a different value for that one over here. It doesn't matter as long as I import from the correct module over here. Since this is a default export over here, I'm going to get that particular view component over there, right? So I'll get a view component, whatever name I try to use over here, I'll get a default export from that particular module over here. So this module will export a default value of that particular view component that we have, since this is a default. So that is a point that we have to know. And if I try to make this one as just a name over here, and if I try that one, it's not going to work. So if I go over here and if I try to add something like a text from the React Native, so I need to import the name over here, and I also need to import the, let's import the text from the React Native, and you can see that this name is not reflected over here. So if I go and remove this one, and if I say something like hello over here, and it should be somewhere over here, right? I think it has been placed over below over here, since this is covering the whole the area of our UI. So what I'll do is I'll just make this one flex as the 0 for now, and you can see that the hello is placed over here. And if I try to just go and add that particular name over here, you will see that we don't get that particular name over here. So which means that the name has not been exported. The name is not there. So what I have to do is I have to use a correct name from here. So I have to import is using a correct name over here. So full name, and I have to use a full name over here. And now I can see that I got that particular text over here. So that is the difference between the name export and also the default export. So once you use the default export, and if you say this is the default component or default export or the default value that you're exporting from this particular module, right? So this is a view component, is a module, and you can import it using any name. It doesn't matter over here. So since this is a default export, you can always use a different name and it's always going to get that particular default export. But once you have a named export over here, which is this is a named export, so this is a full name and this is, we call it as a named export over here. And once we have that, we need to match that particular export value name over here, otherwise it's not going to work. So that is a two difference between the default export and then the export over here. And also the there can be only one default export over here. You cannot have a multiple export, right? You need to take a note on that one. So I guess you got the point. And import just basically means that we are importing that particular module, right? So we are importing this particular module, and also we are importing this particular the full name, which is of the named value from that particular component over here. And this is not the React Native stuff, it's just the general JavaScript stuff over here. So that's all for this lesson, and we'll meet up in the new lesson. Till then, have a great day.